Stalin's Triumph, a new game by Lock and Load in the Nations at War system. This is a system that I played before. A couple of years ago I reviewed White Star Rising, and then last week I reviewed Desert Heat, so this is the third game that I play in this system. Because of that, I will not talk too much about the system in the main segment of my video, because I already have two videos in which I give you more detail about how the system works. What I want to do mainly is to tell you about this specific incarnation of the system. I'll tell you just the general things, but I want to tell you mainly about what Stalin's Triumph has that is different from the other games in the system, what it adds in terms of flavor, in terms of experience. As you can imagine, I didn't mention, but probably don't need to add all that much. We are in World War II, we are on the Eastern Front. Tanks, infantry, powerful German tanks, and support weapons against hordes of Soviet infantry and tanks. In particular, this set the scenarios take place around the Battle of Kursk. Let's take a closer look at the components. Let's get a general overview of the main mechanics of the game. Although probably you have heard me talking about this same thing recently in my review of Desert Heat, and then I'll give you a general assessment of my opinions and ideas after playing the game. The game is played on a set of cardboard maps of this type here. They look like this, and there are several, so you can combine in different ways depending on the scenario instructions for the scenario that you're playing. You can also create your own scenarios. They may not look full of stuff, but after I played Desert Heat last week, in which most of the maps were simply empty desert, to me these look bursting with tactical opportunities. You have, well, more terrain than you have there. You got some rivers, railroads, roads, cultivated terrain, woods. Alright, so definitely more tactical options than in Desert Heat. Here we have depressions that block line of sight and may allow you to put together a sneak attack against your opponents. Towns, more woods, bridges that can be blown up by engineers. Definitely a good range of terrain options here. Again, interesting map. And here we have my favorite map, the one with the most tactical options, I believe, with this nice hill here with woods on top and around depressions that may allow you to put together a sneak attack. If the opponent is defending up here, then you may try to attack one of their flanks, taking advantage of the depression. Interesting stuff. Now, as for the game system, is the same as what you saw in my review of Desert Heat, if you watched that one. Otherwise, I'm going to give you a refresher. If you watched that one and you know what we're talking about, maybe you can skip ahead a little bit. The game is divided in groups. Each group has a headquarter and also an activation marker. The activation markers are placed in a cup, activation markers for both players, for both sides, and then they're drawn randomly. Also, you will place possibly random event markers in there and the turn markers, and then you draw these activation markers randomly and you activate the units belonging to the group that you just activated by drawing their activation marker. You continue like this until only end of turn markers are in the cup, or until a number of them has been drawn. Now, as for the units themselves, we have headquarters. Here you see the morale that the headquarters projects on their troops. If a unit is within command range, which is this number here, then the unit activates normally. If a unit is outside of the command range of their headquarters, they need to pass a morale check. You roll 2d6s, you roll equal to or higher than the morale of that group. Then the unit passes the morale check and can activate normally. Here we have movement factor, and here we have a bonus in combat that the headquarters lands to units of the group stacked with it. As for the combat units themselves, you have two types of such combat units. You have infantry or soft targets, and then you have armor or hard targets. And here you have the combat values that are used when you are attacking an armor target. These are the values you use against soft targets. These are the combat values in assault, and these are the defense values for armor, and that's why, as you can see, infantry doesn't have them. As for these command numbers, so the first one is range, within which your attack is fully effective. Some units may be able to attack past that range of the penalty. Then you have firepower, the number of dice that you roll in combat, and then you have the number to hit. You roll this number of dice, and each number that you roll, which is equal to or higher than the number to hit, scores a hit against the opponent. The same applies here for firing against soft targets, and the same apply here, but there is in range, because again this is for assault, for close combat. When you score a number of hits against an armored vehicle and an armored enemy, they can roll dice from their defense section of their counter. That is the number of dice that they roll, and that is the number that they're trying to meet or exceed, and for each die that they roll in defense that satisfy the requirement of the defense number, they get to annul a hit of that was inflicted by the opponent. And there are also modifiers that, for example, terrain may give you extra dice in defense, may even give dice in defense to infantry if they get cover, and pretty much distance and other factors will influence the number of dice that you roll and or the number to hit, and that's how penalties are handled in this game. When you activate a unit, when you activate a group, because its activation counter was drawn, all units in that group can move or fire, or move up to half of their movement value and fire at a penalty. And that's pretty much most of it. I mean, these are really the basic ideas. Then you have a lot of specific rules that add more detail. You have artillery support, you have defenses, trenches, and these are some of the general Chrome elements in the system, and then you have extra Chrome elements when it comes to this specific module. For example, the Germans here have flam tanks, which are particularly nasty in close combat. They have Goliath support units. Well, here you go. Yes, some of the counters are double-sided and they represent different things on different sides. I guess it saves the number of counters that you have and lowers the price, but then of course you have to keep things well organized. The Goliath, they are support weapons. You stack them with the moving units, and then when you're adjacent, they're pretty much kamikaze mini tanks, and then you send them against the opponent and they can perform pretty nasty close combat assaults. You have commissars that bolster the morale of the Soviets. So when a unit is stacked with a commissar and fails a morale check, you can re-roll one of their dice. If they still fail, then the commissar is eliminated and the unit goes berserk, and then you partially lose control of that unit. The Soviets have tank riders, so there's a good number of unique effects that are used here to simulate specific qualities and elements of the Eastern Front in World War II. In particular, these effects seem to increase the effectiveness of close combat. They give you good incentives to try to get close to the opponent and deliver mighty blows there. You may say I'm partial to cheat pool games, and so be it. That is true, that is accurate. That is a mechanic that I like very much. I like it a lot in war games. It may just be one of my favorite mechanics for war games. To me, it really gives the sense of the confusion, the chaos in the battlefield, the unpredictable elements that no commander can see coming, and all you can do is simply to keep revising your planning based on all of the unpredictable stuff that happens on the board. Plans are nothing, planning is everything, as Eisenhower said, and cheat pool games really represent that. You have a general idea, and that is your plan, and you toss it out the window as soon as the game starts, and the process of planning is something that you keep doing. Also, I have to say, to me it works very well, the system, because I like to play war games solitaire when other war gamers are not around, and cheat pool games work very well in solitaire formats because you can play both sides at the best of your possibilities, and the fact that you do not know the order of the activation will present you with a lot of unforeseen opportunities, new problems, new challenges. This is incremented in this specific system by the fact that not all units, not all formations may activate every turn. Other cheat pool games are a little less radical about this. You do not know the order in which the units will activate, but you do know that all formations will activate. Precisely because of this, however, this system has more of a random element than other cheat pool systems. And when it comes to Stalin's Triumph, you have scenarios where you do not have many formations. Maybe you have 2-3 formations per side. That means that if one of them does not activate in a turn, that can have a pretty radical effect on the overall architecture of the action, because, well, a third of your army was just sitting there doing nothing. And I've seen people complain about this online, so I thought I would address this problem, this aspect. To me, that is not a problem at all, because I play these games in solo. So yes, if a game goes completely astray because a formation didn't activate 3 times in a game, well, I'm learning something and see, wow, that formation really was essential. Without that one, look what happened to the action. And the action goes in a way that is different. I have a challenge when I'm playing that side to make up for the fact that one of my units, one of my formations is strangely dormant. And I can imagine all sorts of like strange, unpredictable occurrences to account for that. But what is interesting to me is the challenges in gameplay that presents me. And I've got the problem of like, well, now I'm falling behind, there isn't much that I can do because I'm playing both sides. And the other side, as I'm switching to the other side, I also had the advantage of like, oh, look at that I'm foreseeing opportunity. Should I counterattack now? Should I change my defense? And maybe that actually triggers something that I did not expect when I look at things from the other side. So if one of the 2 sides gets stuck and doesn't get to do much, I don't mind that, because I'm playing in solitaire, because I'm still constantly engaged. I may lose because of a swing of bad luck, but I'm also winning because of that swing of luck. If I was playing, by the way, in a multiplayer and I lost only because of bad luck, well, at least I don't have to blame myself. There is something to be said for that too. But generally speaking, I don't mind that. Now, to me, again, heavy doses of luck in a war game simply mean a story that has more plot twists than otherwise, especially if I'm playing solo. And if you're playing against other players, there are ways of remedy that. You can play 2 games at the best of your possibilities and see if, again, it's less likely that luck will be so much of a factor. You can switch sides. Again, if you think that may bring more balance and a general view of, the skills of the players, regardless of how luck may affect any single game. And then, of course, you can also use a very simple house rule, which is take the end of turn markers out of the cup and only place activation markers and the random event markers, and then play until all of the activations have activated every turn. If the problem is that a third of your army does not activate every turn, make sure it does. It's pretty simple. Or you can use an intermediate way, say that each formation can only not activate once per game. And then you keep track of that, and so if this formation doesn't activate this turn, it will activate every other turn. So you don't have an 8-turn game in which formation activates 4 times. House rules so that where gamers should be familiar with or can easily come up with when you remedy that situation. And again, other games that are cheat pool in Origin and have a lot of small formations don't have that problem. As for gameplay in general, I like these units, I like the maps, I like the scenarios. It feels thematic, it feels different enough from other games in the system. I like the fact that Assault is particularly powerful with all of these extra weapons that give a lot of damage at close range. Of course, that presents you with an interesting challenge. I could just sit here by the woods and ping, 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 fire at you for the entire game and maybe not get much damage done, which is a problem if I am the attacker. My objective is indeed to dislodge you from a certain position. Or I can get close to you and give you that big punch, which I have to do, of course, as I'm taking enemy fire from the defender. And you have scenarios that have this very strong dichotomy attacker defender with the momentum, with the burden of the action being on the attacker. And again, because of this, also again, it works. This kind of scenario works very well as a solitaire friendly scenario. You identify mainly with the attacking side, as the defending side may be a little more passive, maybe a little easier to decide what to do with that side. But you have the challenge of moving against the opponent. You may almost automatize with the AI the reactions of the defender in that case. So I like the scenarios and the terrain, the depressions give you some interesting tactical options there. The powerful close combat units give you that interesting challenge. I want to hit you with a Goliath, but I need to get there to do so. Other things such as the commissars with the moral effects, that feels very thematic. That's always a sort of brutal element when it comes to Eastern Front games. I always have mixed feelings about them, but they happened, and so they had them there, and so the games can have them as well. And here you have that extra element, of course, that extra morale when the commissar is around, with the risk of having a unit turn berserk if the commissar is eliminated. So a lot of interesting and nice elements. It doesn't revolutionize the Nations of War system at all. So if you didn't like the system in general, I do not think that you're gonna like it here. Vice versa, if you are a fan of the system, you will probably be pleased. It's not a game that I think will change anybody's mind about the system. As a new implementation of the system, is one that is very true to the previous incarnations of the system. It gives us a different theater of operation. It gives us different units and different mechanics and dynamics that definitely are tailored to that scenario, to the theater of operation, and they give a good chrome element. There is enough historical chrome here to really get a sense of the action. This being said, like in other games by Lock and Load, one has the feeling that there is a strong cinematic element here, and as I said in my previous video, the one about Desert Heat, and I can repeat it here, sometimes it almost feels like these are games about an action movie depicting the historical events rather than the historical event itself, because the action is strong, is fluid, and is exciting, which are all good things. Is not may not feel particularly detailed, although you still have different numerical stats that do take into account the armor, the capability, the range, etc., etc. It doesn't feel, again, super detailed. It doesn't feel like a simulation. It does feel like a game, and heck, if you're playing a game, of course, maybe that's precisely what you want to find. It is a game about history with a strong game element. And if you are okay with that, if you see value in a game that depicts an interesting action with a lot of unforeseen events, with a lot of problems to solve or things go about, with a lot of plot twists, then if you see that as a value, then I think you will enjoy Stalin's Triumph. Definitely a good implementation of the system, a good new chapter in the saga in the system. Again, will not change your opinion about the system, but if you like previous games in the system, give it a try. To me, it's even better than Desert Heat, simply because of the new units, the new rules, and more interesting terrain, but definitely a strong new entry in the Nations of War system.